Okay, I want to welcome you to this public forum, which is essentially an informational meeting regarding the referenda items that will be on the November ballot come this fall that are related to county and county-wide issues. I think the Unit 4 school issue is getting more than its share of publicity, which is good, but we certainly didn't want to have the very important issues related to the county not be addressed in public session. And since we are also going to be airing this on UPTV, hopefully there will be more individuals throughout the county who will have a chance to see this before they go to the polls. My name is Barbara Wysocki. I'm the president of the Champaign County League of Women Voters. Happy to welcome you here tonight. I am, first of all, going to introduce our topics and our speakers, and then I'll go over some ground rules with you all, because as an audience, we want you to participate in this evening as well, other than just listening, which of course is very important. There are two referenda ballot items that have to do with the structure of county government. The first of these is a proposition which has been brought forward by Brad Euchen and the Champaign County Farm Bureau. And Brad is with us here this evening to talk about that. And also joining that particular drive is Garrett Hill from the Champaign County Chamber of Commerce, where he serves as the Public Policy Director. The other option is a ballot measure that has to do with the election of a county board chair. Currently, the system is such that the majority party usually has the responsibility of picking its leadership. And this would change this so that the county board chair would become a county-wide elected board chair. And speaking to that issue is Patsy Petrie, who is the current chair of the Champaign County Board, and with her is Deb Busey, who is the former Champaign County Administrator. I want to state the League's position on an event like this before we get too much into the weeds. The League of Women Voters is here basically representing the public and their right to know and to understand the matters brought before it in this upcoming general election. As has been our tradition, we have organized this informational meeting based on the policy and procedures that are in keeping with the rules established by the League of Women Voters throughout the United States. The ground rules for this evening are fairly simple. Each position is allowed a maximum of 20 minutes to present their position. There will be no opening or closing statements. Following that, there will be 25 minutes allowed for questions from the audience. And I have to stress that this is an informational meeting. It is not a debate. So, keeping with that, the following rights will be observed. Number one, the presenters of each position have the right to expect the courtesy of not being interrupted by anyone in the room. Two, the presenters will not address each other or characterize each other's position in unflattering terms. Their presence here is to inform the public. Therefore, presenters will address their comments to the public. Audience members, we're hoping, will observe the same civility. Members at the end of the presentations will have an opportunity to address their comments to whichever side or whichever position they choose. It can be that just one side needs to respond or one position needs to respond. It's also possible that the question is broad enough that the other side could as well. If the question is addressed to just one position, the moderator will determine if a short 30-second comment response is warranted from the other. Audience members will not offer a dissertation as a prelude to a question, and there will be no opportunities for follow-ups. One of our restrictions here tonight, unbeknownst to me, is the fact that we're limited to one microphone. So this is one that will be shared, first of all, with the panelists so that they each can have a chance to talk. But when we get to the Q&A from the audience, I'm going to ask that if you have a question, rather than me scurrying around the room, I would prefer that you come here to the lectern and utilize the mic. Otherwise, UPTV will go silent. So, without further ado, we're going to start with the question relating to an elected county executive. And I'm going to turn this over to Brad Euchen, the Farm Bureau Manager, and Garrett Hill, the Public Policy Director of the Champaign County Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Barb. So as Barb said, I am Garrett Hill. I'm the Public Policy Director of the Champaign County Chamber of Commerce. I have to say, I have spent my entire life around local government and elected officials, and this is my first time ever on this side. I'm used to sitting where you all are, so please be gentle tonight. I'm gonna do my best. So, I work for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm here representing them. We have over 1,000 members, and with them 40,000 employees to represent. Our organization had met with the Farm Bureau and had decided to support the County Executive Initiative. Before I move forward, Brad, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, and I want to start off by saying thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on to allow information to get out there to the public. As Garrett said and Barb said, my name's Brad Euchen. I'm manager of the Champaign County Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau, much as the Chamber of Commerce, is a membership-based organization representing, among others, farmers and those involved in agriculture. We've been around since 1912 as an organization here in Champaign County, and we focus our efforts on information, education, and advocacy. So with that, I'll give it back to Garrett to move forward.
So I'll just start off with why we move forward with this proposal. And the number one reason that we move forward is there's very limited rights citizens have to reform county government. One of them is through a county executive form of government. We wanted a reform which allowed the people of Champaign County to elect their own leader. Currently, the board chairman, the leader of the board, is elected by the members. I believe it was stated earlier by the majority party. A lot of time, sometimes recently, it has been decided with minority votes. A lot of times, the way the vote has gone down has led to animosity on the board, which has kind of stalled on a lot of major issues. We're looking at the county jail, the nursing home, IT upgrades, and just facilities in general. A lot of these issues we really want to move forward with. A county executive would be a 4-year term. That is a 4-year vision for Champaign County. We're looking for long-term solutions. That is one way we felt we could move forward with reforming county government to move forward. With the ability of the county executive, they have the ability to veto with the consent of the board. So anything proposed would go before the county board, and it would be for an up or down veto from the county executive. So there is a check and balance on both sides. The county board proposes the proposals they want and work with the county executive to move projects forward. And as far as economic development, we were looking for one person who can speak on behalf of Champaign County that can be our voice to our elected officials in DC and Springfield and to major companies that want to move here to help spur economic development in Champaign County. This is why we decided to move forward with the proposal.
Well, I'm going to touch on just a little bit. Garrett talked a little bit about why we decided to move forward, but I'm going to touch on a little bit of the differences between the two positions. So I'm going to start off with kind of the county board form of government, which again is kind of what we have today here in Champaign County. So again, I'm not bouncing back and forth. This is kind of what we would have today. The county board chairperson is elected by the county board to a 2-year term. The county board chairperson is responsible to the county board and acts on their behalf. The county board chairperson is a member of the county board. The county board chairperson votes as a member of the county board. The county board chairman has no veto authority. The board simply passes resolutions by a majority vote. The county board has a joint legislative/administrative control over county departments and appointments to the board and commissions. And the last one, the annual budget is led by the county administrator who works with the various departments for their respective budget prior to a series of meetings the county board does and public input then at a later period as well. Now, to talk a little bit about the county executive, and again, these are just how this would change a little bit. The county executive is elected by the voters to a 4-year term. The county executive is responsible to all voters of Champaign County. The county executive presides over the board but is not a member. The only way the county executive would have a vote is if there's a tie. With the current scenario of 22 board members, there's always a potential for a tie vote. Again, the county executive has veto authority over ordinances passed by the board. But much as we see in Springfield and Washington, D.C., there's opportunities for that ordinance and that veto to be overridden. It would take a 3/5 majority vote to override that veto. The county executive appoints, with the consent of the county board, individuals to various boards and commissions. Again, extremely similar to how we operate today, where the county board chair would recommend someone with the approval of the full county board. And the annual budget is prepared and presented by the county executive, and that's a little bit different than where we're at today. So that's kind of some of the differences. I'm going to give it back to Garrett to cover. We're just going to cover just a couple other items before we wind down.
So just to address some of the criticisms that we have heard about the proposal, one of them that it would increase cost. That one is not true. It is revenue neutral. All the costs associated with the county executive or any staff thereof is at the discretion of the county board. Everything would have to be budgeted, negotiated. It does not increase or decrease revenue. So the county board would have to allocate resources towards it, but it definitely does not require any type of spending increases. Everything is at the discretion of the county board and at their approval.
So 2 things to cover on our side is, one is we've been asked several times on behalf of the Farm Bureau, this has been on the ballot 3 times prior, back in 1986, actually 4 times, I'm sorry, 86, 88, 90, and 98. In all 4 cases, the Champaign County Farm Bureau opposed it. So the question's been asked, what changed and what's the difference this time? And I would say, so again, the last time was 18 years ago, and yes, I'll sit up here and tell you we changed our mind. In 18 years, I think people are allowed to change their mind once or twice, and we've changed our mind on this. What are some of the reasons why now? And again, I think Garrett covered a number of those. But I think also the county's gone through a lot of changes. The size of the county board is different than it was 18 years ago. We now have 2 facilities for nursing home, one that is used in the old nursing home. I don't think that was that way 18 years ago. There's 2 jail facilities that were not in place 18 years ago. The administrators have changed, and just after the last time this was passed, they actually bought Brookins. So in 1999 is when they acquired Brookins, their administrative center. So I would say a lot of things have changed, and yes, the Farm Bureau has changed their mind after 18 years. The other thing that is often talked about is that this individual, the county executive, will have the authority to hire their own legal counsel to represent them. And that's a correct statement. In fact, I'll read directly out of state statute to what it says. At his discretion, appoint a person to serve as legal counsel at an annual salary established by the county board at an amount no greater than the salary of the state's attorney of the county. So again, no question about it. State statute says the county executive can, at their discretion, appoint a person to serve as legal counsel. But I think the key sentence there is the salary is still established by the county board. So the county board still has a check and balance when we start to talk about legal counsel being hired. The county board has the ability to say, yes, you can, but you are not going to pay them whatever amount it is. The county board still has that authority to approve that. So those are just a few things that Garrett and I wanted to put out there a little bit and talk a little bit about the differences, why we're doing it, and a few questions we've heard from a number of people.
Time Master, how are we on time?
Oh, you got plenty of time.
Oh.
Okay.
We're ready.
All right. Well, let's move over to the second proposal. This is the one that has to do with the election of a county board chair.
Just as a little background information, it was touched on, there are three forms of government defined by the statutes in Illinois for counties and county boards, which are the executive form of government, the township form, of which Champaign County is currently a township county board, as well as 82 of the other 102 counties in the state, and then a commission form of government, which typically exists only in the very small counties. There are 17 commission forms of government. Cook County has its own statutes. It's an executive form of government, but not covered by any of the statutes that cover the rest of the counties. And Will County is the one county in the state that has elected to go to this executive form of government. The township form of government, however, allows for different approaches to how the county board chair is selected and functions. And the proposal that the county board has placed on the ballot to go to a countywide elected board chair is being done for reasons similar to some of the reasons for the elected executive, to create a stronger form of leadership for the county board, to create a higher level of transparency and accountability. So with this change, we would move from the system where the county board members themselves, each of whom are elected from one of 11 districts within the county, those members themselves, so basically 11 members and the delegate to be board chair, determine who the board chair will be. Under this proposal, where there would be a countywide elected board chair, there would be an individual who would run countywide, who would talk to all the voters about what their goals and what their ideas about the strategic initiatives of the county would be. They would also, rather than a 2-year term, serve a 4-year term. So there are similarities between the elected executive and the proposal for a countywide county board chair in those terms. The countywide board chair would also preside over county board meetings, but not vote except to break a tie vote. And ordinances and resolutions adopted by the county board would be presented to the chair. If the chair approves the resolution, he signs it and it becomes effective on the date signed. If the chair does not approve the resolution, he sends it back to the county board, documenting what the objections are, and the county board then reconsiders the resolution or ordinance. With the elected executive, it takes 3/5, or in Champaign County, 14 of the 22 members, to override a veto by the elected executive. In the county board chair form, it takes 12 votes, or a majority of the 22 board members, to override a veto by the county board chair. But clearly, the goal of establishing a stronger form of leadership for the county board can be accomplished through this transition and change of going to a countywide elected board chair. At the same time, over the last 20 or 30 years, township forms of government have really developed and evolved in terms of establishing a county administrator form of government. A county administrator form consolidates all the administrative functions of the daily operations of county government to a single office, which reports to the county board and which is led by the county administrator. So with the proposal for the countywide board chair, we have the improved leadership for the county board through its chair, but would maintain the county administrator form of government. There are some perceived benefits to this form of government. The administrator is selected and hired by the county board based upon the education, experience, qualifications, and capabilities of the individual. The county administrator is the county board's liaison to the 8 elected officials in county government. These officials are individually responsible for the operations of their offices, but they must operate within the budget and facilities established for them by the county board. A nonpartisan, non-political administrator has a greater potential to work with these political office holders in developing best practices and solutions for the overall management of county government. Additionally, the county administrator's performance and effectiveness is evaluated by the county board, frequently with input from the elected officials and department heads with whom the administrator works. Direct input from all officials with regard to the administrator's work is a valuable approach for determining the administrator's individual success and or whether an administrator should remain in that position. Under the county elected executive form of government, all of that is left to the voters. One of the primary responsibilities of the administrator is to support the county board by providing professional research, analysis, and comparable information on decision-making issues facing the county board, which ultimately enables well-informed and effective decisions by the board. So the administrator works with the board on these initiatives rather than independently developing initiatives. It is the responsibility of the county administrator to work with the board to develop and maintain the focus and priorities identified by the county board in their strategic plan. And the administrator then acts as a liaison to all county departments to ensure that the board's strategic plan is identified and implemented throughout the operations of county government. The county administrator is responsible, as is the elected executive, for developing the countywide budget and advising the county board on policy matters. Because a professional administrator is uninvolved in political partisan matters, the opportunity for an objective, issue-focused approach as opposed to a political approach on budget and policy is greater when the elected officials work with a county administrator. Those are the reasons that the county-wide elected county board chair form could provide greater leadership overall for the county board and still maintain administrative functions that are well thought out and operating with more of a consensus approach.
Thank you very much. For UPTV, I'm Patsy Petrie. I'm the cleanup batter this evening. It's in honor of baseball season. There are a couple of other things that I'd like to add to what Ms. Busey and Mr. Hill and Mr. Yukon have already covered. First, I was the one who brought this proposal to the county board, and the county board supported it, and the reason for doing that is exactly the kind of conversation we are having this evening and the questions and answered, and that is to let citizens know that the decision is not binary, just the way we do it today, or an elected county executive. The other way is a countywide elected county board chair, and it's two-pronged. One is a 4-year term, or one is a 2-year term. And the proposal I put forward is the 4-year term. Another clarification is to underline for you all is on the county executive side, there is the veto power that that individual has, and it is 3/5 of the total membership of the county board at that point in time. So that means anything that gets passed by the then county board can indeed be vetoed, but it can then indeed be overridden if that is a possibility. With the county elected executive, that also has two prongs of approach in the statute. One is what you will see on the ballot, and that is non-home rule. The other possible choice, according to the statute, was to have an elected county executive with home rule. And the choice of non-home rule, as you all are very well acquainted, since we are a non-home rule county, is that then the county is limited in any means to increase their budget because we have what is called tax caps. If that had been chosen to be a home rule choice from the statute, then that opens the possibility that the county would have had opportunities to increase the county general fund, and therefore would have had the opportunities to work on some of the issues that we're working on presently, but it's difficult because of the general fund amount, and that is the jail, all of our facilities, our nursing home, and our IT, and that will be talked about with the next speaker, so I won't go into that in great extent. I think maybe it is not totally a revenue neutral approach for a county executive because of the possibilities by statute of being able to increase staff and an attorney, and that is correct. It does take the advice and consent of the county board, but then there's also the possibility of a veto by the elected executive. And then again, the potential of override. I think that it would be good now for questions and answers, but before we get into that, I will let you know, typical of somebody who's been in education for decades, we have terrific handouts. There are two from the Center for Government at Northern Illinois University that talks about very nicely the different forms of government that counties can choose to have. And the other one goes in a little bit more detail than Ms. Busey already has as to the importance of a professional county administrator. And then Ms. Busey does have copies of her comparison matrix, and she has one more there. Her handout, what she talked about in relationship to a professional county administrator. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Wysocki for questions and answers.
Thank you. So now it's your turn. Patricia?
I guess, does the statute require or provide for either or both of the county executive and the county board chair to run as a partisan candidate?
As far as my understanding, they both would have to run through a political primary and then through a general election.
Okay, so both positions would be either a Republican or a Democrat under our current.
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me about how many votes of the county board at this time are close to just a simple majority passing and not a much higher amount of voting? In other words, is the county board in a situation where a great number of the votes are majority only, meaning that there's a strong dissent and perhaps some dysfunctionality?
I think a majority of the decisions that the county board makes are decided by a majority vote. However, there are areas of responsibility, the most notable being anything having to do with amending or changing the budget requires a 2/3 vote, which is actually a higher standard than the 3/5. It's with a 22-member board, it's 15 members, and the 3/5 is 14 members.
I guess the purport of my comment is something different, which is, sorry. Okay. All right.
If you want to rephrase that, we can do it after we give others a chance. James?
Yeah, in the interest of full disclosure, I am a county board member. But I did want to, and because of that experience, I know that over the last 6 years at least, some of the problems that I've heard talked about, like facilities and IT, have mostly been limited by funding because of the current tax cap situation. So I'm going to ask the Farm Bureau and the Chamber, did they seriously consider the home rule component? Because if you're talking about changing the form of government to help government move forward on things that have been blocked, you have to also address the question of financing. So how did you look at the home rule versus non-home rule question, and why did you turn out with non-home rule?
So, first part of the question, did we fully vet home rule versus non-home rule? Absolutely. It was heavily weighed. We chose non-home rule because our proposal, we're looking to involve the citizens of Champaign County, the voters. By changing to non-home rule, a referendum such as the one that's currently on the ballot or a property tax increase would not have to go before the voters. And we believe that those decisions need to be made by the people of Champaign County. We believe it is their right to decide how much they decide to pay. And we do like having the authority in the hands of the people.
I'll echo some of Garrett's comments as well. We also looked at that and decided not to go in that direction either and not support the home rule aspect. And again, it boils down to having voter input and input on various issues. And again, if you didn't go that direction, the county board would have more authority to do things without input from the actual voters, which we think is not a good thing. We think that you should include the voters and provide them an opportunity to weigh in on issues.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little confused by one of the statements I think that you made, Deb. You referred to decisions by this administrator being nonpartisan. But then I think the question was asked, does the candidate run as a one party or the other? So I'm confused how if someone is running in a partisan primary and then on the ballot, how the decisions would be nonpartisan.
The county administrator is not running. The county board chair is running, and that would be a partisan election. But I was referring to the county administrator as nonpartisan. The county board chair is partisan. An elected executive would be partisan.
So the administrator really doesn't have anything to do with this on one side.
Well, a professional administrator it professionally needs to be a non-political, nonpartisan individual.
Yes.
Good evening. My question is directed to, I forgot, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, or to both of you. There's an indication that the executive does not require an increase in revenue. Okay, but the executive would receive a salary, is that correct? And so his salary would come out of our current revenue that's very strapped and cuts. So we wouldn't increase the revenue, but we would bite into the revenue to pay another salary. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, to answer your question, there is a minimum salary. It's about 1.5 times the current county board member, which is not very much at all. So the current board chair has a salary, and it will be up to the county board to decide what to pay the executive. So as far as whether it would increase or decrease revenue, it would still be up to the consent of the county board.
That's a no question. We understand it's not going to increase revenue, but my question was that that's an additional expense out of our current revenue.
But the chairman salary would go away. So the current chairman is receiving a salary. There you have money. It would be up to the county board where to put that money. And it's up to the county board how much to pay the executive.
Yeah, that's correct. The county board would still have the authority to set those salaries specifically for the county executive. And the other thing is the county executive would have some authority to establish their own office, taking a look at the current administrative office that the county currently has and determining if that fits into their structure. And I would suspect whoever's elected would want to do that, would want to review the current structure of the administrative office and determine if that's the structure this person would want to proceed with.
Thirty seconds.
30 seconds. Okay, just to give you all some other information, Will County, which is the only county that has the elected executive, has an elected executive, a county administrator, and a county board chair. Rock Island passed an elected executive, and 4 years later, with a higher bar, removed it because they found it did not work for them. And McHenry County tried in 2012, defeated it in 2014, passed a countywide elected county board chair, and now in 2016, several are running for that position.
Okay, Maureen?
Excuse me. My question is, what would you perceive to be the qualifications for someone to run for county executive?
Before I answer that question, I would like to clarify one thing. You have to keep in mind Will County, at one time, for a number of years, was the fastest growing state population, or county, I should clarify, in the United States. Again, the key word, the fastest growing population county in the United States. Will County is quite a bit different. But if you want to compare us to Will County, then you have to look at the county administrator and county executive, I should clarify. County executive form of government is used throughout the United States, including in the Midwest, quite frequently in Wisconsin, Missouri, Kentucky, California, New York, Michigan, all have county executive form of government within their state. As far as qualifications, there is no qualification set in the state statute. The state statute does not say this is the qualifications you must have. What I think you would have to have is somebody that's got good communication and listening skills. That would be very important to listen to the voters. A willingness to make some tough decisions, because there are tough decisions that need to be made on all levels of government. Experience with boards. I think you want somebody who has led boards before, who has served on boards. I think that's critical. Ability to work with others in the community, other organizations such as, whomever that may be in the community. Experience with budgeting and financing. Facilitating facility management would be another one. And I think there's a number of others we could talk about. Now, you may be sitting there saying, boy, Brad, you just described the absolutely perfect candidate that doesn't exist. I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I think you've got to look at the candidate and how many of those boxes will they check, whoever runs for it, and that's potentially the most qualified person for the position. Because what I just rattled off would be absolutely positively the best candidate, and you're just not going to be able to find them. So you have to look at a number of things and how many boxes does that individual carry when they run for this position.
Do we have anyone else that needs to be put? Well, let's get another one and then we'll come back. Sure. Is that the rule? Well, I'm trying to broaden this as much as we can.
I just wasn't clear from the gentleman. Would the county administrator position be maintained in what you're proposing?
Again, I think the county executive, if they were elected, would have that option to review the administrative office. So I can't guarantee that the administrator would be retained. That would be up to the executive that is elected, because they would have the authority to look at their office and determine the proper needs for it.
I would just add that a lot of the responsibilities of the elected executive are currently the responsibilities of the county administrator. So certainly the county administrator, the individual may be kept in another role, but the job itself would not be the same, because you would have two positions doing the same thing in many instances.
Hi again, I'm one of the county board members as well. My name is Gary Maxwell. I'd like to ask both sets of presenters. In 2021, we will be redistricting this county for representation on the county board. Could each side explain to us what effect an elected county executive might have on the development of a fair map, or the county elected board chair, if any? Thank you.
All right. So as far as redistricting, both the Chamber and the Farm Bureau, we were major supporters of the independent map amendment. Please, I'm going to stop the conversation there before I get too upset. But one of the things that we definitely want to address from a county executive level is the map that is coming up. So right now, as far as this election coming up, out of the 11 districts, 2 of them are opposed. This is a lot of the same stuff that we see at the level of the state of Illinois, where the districts are drawn, so they're just simply not competitive, and people do not want to run. So one of the things, so step 1 is to pass a reform. Step 2 would be to elect an executive, a good executive, and they would have to run on a platform. One of those platforms that I know the Chamber would like to see, and the Farm Bureau, I won't speak on behalf, but is a fair redistricting, a new map that encourages competition, that we can have competitive elections and healthy discussions like this tonight for each and every race, up and down in every area from Rantoul to Seymour to Champaign-Urbana.
And I'll just add to that in that if indeed we're going to run a comparison tonight of us and Will County, even though I believe there's some dramatic differences, during the last redistricting process in Will County, the county board produced their map, and actually the county executive produced his own map. And in Will County, the county board is Republican and the county executive is Democrat. At the end of the day, both maps were extremely similar, and they actually compromised between the two, and they passed the map unanimously by the county board during their last redistricting process. So again, 2 different parties worked together and accomplished a compromise map when it comes to redistricting that passed unanimously by the Will County Board. So again, if we're going to compare ourselves, I think there's a great example of how it can work through that process.
Under the statutes for redistricting, the authority for a countywide elected board chair and an elected executive are basically exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the override of a veto requirements that we've previously talked about. But a countywide elected board chair could also, as a platform for their election, talk about a fair, mapping process and communicate to the voters that what their goals are and what their intents are with regard to that whole process. A countywide elected board chair is provided with the same opportunity to present a map to the county board that the elected executive is. So really, from that perspective, the authority is very similar for both positions.
Just a reminder that there is the veto on the one side. And second, when I gave the example of Will County, it was not a comparison. It was just to let everybody know that out of 102 counties in the state, there is only one county that has chosen to have an elected executive.
Yes, sir.
This is just sort of a procedural question. I assume that these proposals are both on the ballot as independent questions, yes/no questions, which means that they both could fail or they both could pass. And what happens if they both pass?
I can answer that. If they both pass, since the question of an elected county executive was put on the ballot by petition, that trumps. So that would be the one that would win.
Actually, it's by statute.
Yeah, by statute.
It's not by petition.
Oh, okay. I thought it was by the petition.
Peggy?
Thank you all for being here. It seems to me that there are significant additional administrative costs that would come with this elected county executive, only in that it would come out of an existing county board budget that I think everyone acknowledges is quite limited and can't do all that we'd like it to do. I certainly appreciate the need for an elected county leadership that's more responsive to the voters. I hear that coming out of both sides. So I was wondering, and this is, I guess, addressed to the Farm Bureau and Chamber, can you tell me what the benefits of an elected county executive is over an elected county board chair? Because it seems to me the elected county board chair would still be more responsive to the needs of the voters without the additional administrative costs of a new position and support staff that would come with it. So what are you proposing that can't be done with what we're hearing from the elected county board chair?
Well, to stick to Barb's instructions, not to speak ill of another proposal. Actually, I believe they both have merit, and both parties are coming to the table today to tell you that we want to see change and reform in Champaign County. I think that's a very, very good thing. We're moving forward with the county executive proposal because we believe it is a sound structural change. It's a leader that can draw a vision for Champaign County for long term to address solutions that we are looking for.
Yeah, again, I would echo that in that you have the opportunity for a long-term vision for this county, something that we don't necessarily have today. And I think that you do have some ability with the veto to almost force some compromise because of that negotiation. In talking with the other county that has this, Will County in Illinois, in talking with their executive, one of the things he felt that it really did was it did force the two sides to talk, to work together more, because there was that threat. I believe I don't have my notes right in front of me, but I believe he's been in that position for 6, 8, 10 years, and he talked about the number of times he's actually used it has been about 3 or 4 times during that period, because he felt it forced the compromise. It forced the two sides to sit down and talk more because they knew if he vetoed it, they would need that supermajority. So I think the issue of compromise is something that is a ramification of this form of government.
We need to wrap this session up because we're almost at the top of the hour, and we do need to kind of shift personnel in order to do the second part. I would certainly, yes.
I just have a question for the league.
Yes.
We have the two proponents of the alternatives sitting up front. Why isn't there someone up front representing the status quo?
Good question. Yeah, okay, I hear it. Well, part of it is, to be honest, we really kind of scrambled to put this one together in the last few days.
Points for honesty.
Really did. And had, I think if the league itself had had a little more time to kind of process this kind of meeting, we probably would have asked that question ourselves. So sort of live and learn. So thank you. We're going to wrap up this session, and then in about 5 minutes we will talk about the quarter-cent issue as it appears on the ballot. So without further ado, Mr. Snyder is going to start?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Barb. I wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring the forum tonight and for all of you to spend some time with us this evening. I have been on the job with Champaign County now for about 5 months, so I'm going to walk through some of my thoughts about our needs and where the need for the quarter-cent facility sales tax arises. And then I'm going to turn it over to Chris Alex here, who has been with the board for a considerably longer time than me and can give you a better perspective on the history of the county. So a couple of things that give rise to the need for additional revenues. County's got challenges in that our revenues have been constrained for a number of years. Part of that involves the economic conditions that we've experienced since the crash in 2007. Looking at the budget from around 2008 to the present day, I believe we've only increased about 6%, a little over 6%. But if you had applied the consumer price index to the budget from 2008 to bring that forward, it would result in about a 12% increase. So clearly, our budget has not kept up with inflation at all. At the same time, we've experienced increases in things like health care and other costs that have exceeded the rate of inflation. So it's been a difficult time for the county. We're also operating under the tax caps that have been created through PTEL. I believe that was passed in the mid-90s, so it's about 20 years of tax caps have also affected that. What that has caused is that we have been prioritizing delivery of services to the citizens of Champaign County, but that has meant that we haven't been able to keep up in other areas. And one of the first areas that suffers usually when you are constrained with revenues is your maintenance of facilities. We deliver all of our services at the county through our facilities. It's a big investment. We'll talk about that in a moment, but we haven't been able to maintain them in the way that we need to. We have a $35.8 million general fund budget this year. Of that, only about 0.7%, or about $240,000, would be considered discretionary. All the other activities that the county engages in, the administration of elections, our tax system, the courts, the sheriff's office, all these things are things that are prescribed by statute. So we have no choice in what we really make our investments in other than that 0.7%. So it doesn't give us the latitude to make better investments in facilities that we should. We have about $160 million in our building portfolio. There was some construction that went on in the 1990s and 2000s. You know that we rehabilitated the historic courthouse and also put on an annex. We built a satellite jail facility on the East Campus. There were some other things that we've done. But we haven't invested in our maintenance. The normal standards for maintenance are that you should be investing about 2% of the replacement value of your buildings per year. So of $160 million, that's a little over $3 million a year we need to spend on maintenance. we've only been recently spending about $532,000 a year. So clearly it's only about 17% of what the need is. So we're not keeping up. These are just a few pictures of some of the problems that are representative of what the county's facing. We have 22 major buildings across the county. These are some pictures from the courthouse and also from Brookins. You can see that we've got a lot of issues with the roofs. There's a lot of antiquated structures. Those stairs are actually in the area between the old courthouse and the annex. We've got problems with flashing around windows, leaky roofs, all the typical things that happen when you don't maintain buildings. So the goals of our facilities action plan that we derived from this, and I should mention that the county engaged in a study last year of all of its facilities. We had contracted with an architectural firm to develop a very long list of all the deferred maintenance issues, and came up with some goals for this. So that first one was that we wanted to get all of our buildings back to a level of maintainability so that we wouldn't need extra revenues to do that, so that we could do this through the funds that we would normally generate in a typical year. We also wanted to relieve some of the burdens on the general fund currently paying for facilities that might create some potential program opportunities. Without any kind of additional revenue, we can't do any other programming. We have that 0.7% out there that's discretionary again, so it doesn't leave us a lot of room to do anything else except what we really have to do. We want to reduce the amount of managed space of the county by about 27%. Right now we have 840,000 square feet under management. With our plan, we can reduce that by nearly 250,000 square feet, which means that going forward we'll have a lot less facilities to maintain, and of course the cost will be less. And if we do it right, we ought to be able to become debt-free by the end of 2028. All the current bonds that are in place with the county will be retired by that date, and the funding program that's been developed under the quarter cent proposal will make sure that we are debt-free in 12 years. So our strategy is to restore the buildings to maintainable condition. We want to repurpose any existing buildings where we have opportunities rather than build new. We also want to eliminate or replace any structures that are obsolete. That also includes some of our computer facilities. Again, minimize new construction costs. The maintenance backlog, which is the bulk of our issue right now, involves primarily things like building envelopes, which are your critical systems. So that's your roofs and the masonry of the buildings. These are what protect your buildings from things like water intrusion and other weather-related problems, so you don't have deterioration of the interior structures. We also need to maintain our mechanicals. Some of the buildings have mechanical systems that are 40 years old. They need to be replaced. Control systems also helps us become more energy efficient in how we manage our buildings. And then the things that we need to service the public, like parking lots and sidewalks. One of the examples on our list is the Champaign County Nursing Home. They have an extensive list of deferred maintenance issues. There's about $2 million worth of deferred maintenance. They also are currently paying about $282,000 a year in the bond costs that were issued to take care of remedial issues following the construction of the new nursing home. We also recognize that in order for the home to be competitive in the marketplace and be able to provide the services that people need, they're going to need about somewhere between $3 to $6 million in strategic capital. That means things to retrofit the building, provide equipment that's needed to provide the services that the residents need. The nursing home board of directors came up with a recommendation that they needed somewhere on the order of about $750,000 in relief each year to handle those capital issues. They just don't have the revenue right now to do those things. We also intend to put together a consolidation of the corrections facilities. We want to close the downtown jail and the sheriff's office, relocate both of those activities to the East Campus. Back in 2011, the National Institute of Corrections characterized the conditions at the downtown jail facility as deplorable. They haven't gotten any better in the last 5 years. We wanted to also address the needs that have been identified by experts such as Kalmanoff and the other folks that have looked at our facilities, and also by the public. Many of you have also expressed your concerns about how the jail is operated and what services are needed to provide proper care for people who are incarcerated there. So we have included a 30-bed medical and mental health unit. We've also proposing development of an open booking and release facility. I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. We also are including a facility for family contact visitation. This is a very important issue for both people who are in the facility and also their families who want to maintain relationships with them. We also have a need to provide separation of incompatible inmates. So in order to close the downtown facility, which has right now a capacity of 130 beds, we want to create a 70-bed separation unit. And what I mean by incompatible is that there are people who have committed crimes or are alleged to have committed crimes who are in the facility but cannot be safely housed with other people. So they need to be in separate areas, separated both by sight and sound. We also have that issue for females who are also at the facility. Right now we're dedicating an entire pod for housing females. We want to be able to do that more efficiently and open up that space. This is an example of another county's open booking concept. It's kind of what we would like to create at the facility. You'll notice that it's sort of a lounge atmosphere. People are sitting in chairs. When people come into the Champaign County Jail today, about a third of them are released within 8 hours of their arrival. There's no need to incarcerate those people. There's no need to build cells to house those people for such a short period of time. So by moving to this open concept, we can eliminate the need for all of that and also reduce the level of or the effects of incarceration on those people who are in the jail. Right now, we don't have contact visitation. One of the intentions of the plan is to provide for contact visitation opportunities for people. We also mentioned the medical and mental health services unit. It's a 30-bed unit. It also provides for a couple of isolation rooms. Sometimes people coming into the facility have communicable diseases and need to be isolated. We have negative pressure rooms designed in the new facility to keep those people separated from the general population for their safety and the safety of others around them.